Imagine for a moment that sitting in your pocket change, tucked away in a dusty jar in your garage, or lying forgotten in a box passed down from your grandparents. There could be a single coin that changes your life forever. What if that small, ordinary-looking penny, the one you've ignored countless times, was actually worth hundreds of thousands or even up to $1 million? Today, we're talking about the 1960 Lincoln penny with the D mint mark, a coin that has stunned collectors, puzzled experts, and made headlines at major auction houses. And if you've never checked your own coins carefully, you might be sitting on a treasure you don't even realize you have. At first glance, the 1960 Lincoln penny looks like any other cent you might have jingling in your pocket. It features Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the front, just as he's appeared since 1909, and the familiar Lincoln Memorial reverse design. Millions were struck at the Denver Mint that year, which is why the D mark appears below the date. But what makes this coin different, and why it has captured so much attention, is that a small number of these 1960 D pennies aren't like the rest. They hold secrets, errors, and varieties that elevate their value from 1 cent to life-changing sums. Now here's where it gets mysterious. In 1960, the Mint produced 2 distinct versions of the date, a small date and a large date. Most people at the time had no idea there was even a difference. But collectors soon realized that the small date version from Denver was much harder to find. Combine that with striking errors, doubled dies, and rare conditions, and suddenly you have a recipe for a coin that, in pristine condition, can soar into the hundreds of thousands at auction. Imagine sifting through a jar of pennies, spotting that slightly different 0 in the date, and realizing you're holding a fortune in the palm of your hand. But how do you know if your coin is the right one? That's the question every treasure hunter asks. The small date variety has a slimmer, more delicate look to the numerals. The 6 is higher, and the 0 is smaller compared to the large date. It's subtle, but once you see the difference, you can't unsee it. Many people have overlooked these pennies for decades, spending them, tossing them into change piles, or letting them gather dust. Could one of those overlooked cents be hiding in your collection? Before you shrug it off, let me share a story. A collector in California, rummaging through an old cigar box of coins inherited from his father, stumbled on a 1960 D small date penny in nearly flawless condition. He had no idea at first what he was looking at, but after sending it to a grading company, one of the big names like PCGS or NGC, the coin came back certified at a grade so high that it sold at auction for tens of thousands of dollars. Stories like this are not myths. They're real documented cases, and they remind us that sometimes fortune hides in plain sight. Now here's the twist. Beyond the small date variety, there are also double die errors on certain 1960 D pennies. These are coins where the design elements appear doubled due to a striking mishap at the mint. If you look closely, you may see extra lines in the date or the lettering. To a casual observer, it looks like nothing, but to a trained eye, or even just someone with a magnifying glass and curiosity, it's a sign of enormous value. Some of these double die pennies have crossed the auction block for prices that leave collectors stunned. Imagine pulling out a penny worth nearly $1 million just because you noticed something unusual about its numbers. Have you ever wondered how many of these coins are still out there, hiding in plain sight? That's part of the mystery. The Denver Mint produced millions of pennies in 1960, but only a fraction had the rare small date or doubling error. And since most people spent their coins without a second thought, many of these rarities disappeared into circulation. Some were lost forever, yet a few survive, sitting in drawers, jars, and collections, waiting to be rediscovered. Could your change jar be one of the last hiding places? Auction houses like Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers have documented remarkable sales of 1960 D Lincoln cents. High-grade examples with pristine luster, perfect strikes, and the coveted small date variety have sold for staggering sums. One example reached a value of nearly $20,000. Others, with unique doubling or in mint state red condition, have fetched even higher prices. And when you factor in rarity, condition, and collector demand, the upper ceiling for what this coin could bring rises dramatically. In fact, the record for a 1960 D small date penny has pushed toward $50,000 in past sales. And experts agree that if the right specimen surfaces, flawless, uncirculated, and with the rare error varieties, It could push into the six-figure range or beyond. That's where the million-dollar dreams come alive. Think about that for a second. A single cent that cost the government less than a penny to make could now be a life-changing asset. Most investments, stocks, real estate, even gold, require careful planning and years of patience. But in the world of coin collecting, sometimes all it takes is luck, knowledge, and an eye for detail. Could you be the one who finds the next headline-making discovery? Here's another suspenseful twist. Back in the early 1960s, when these coins first entered circulation, collectors and dealers were on the hunt. They knew there was something unusual about that year, and many stashed away rolls of pennies hoping to strike it rich later. Some of those rolls remain unopened to this day, tucked in attics or buried in storage units. Imagine being the person who opens a roll of 1960 pennies and finds not just one rare small date, but an entire roll filled with them. That scenario isn't just fantasy. It has happened before, and those coins are now prized pieces in elite collections. And yet, most people don't check. They let their coins sit, assuming they're worth only face value. They dismiss the possibility that the treasure could be right in front of them. But think about it. How many times have we heard stories of someone discovering a lost baseball card, a painting, or a coin that ended up being worth a fortune? The 1960 penny is one of those overlooked treasures, and history has proven again and again that discoveries still happen. So, how do you make sure you're not missing out? The first step is to check your pennies carefully. Look at the date. Compare the size of the numerals. Study the 0. Examine the D mint mark. Use a magnifying glass if you need to. And if you think you have something unusual, don't just toss it back into circulation. Get it looked at by a professional. Reputable grading companies like PCGS or NGC not only authenticate your coin, but also give it a grade that can multiply its value. A raw coin might fetch a few $100s. A certified coin in top condition could fetch tens of thousands. And now, here is the revelation you've been waiting for. The highest reported value for a 1960 Lincoln penny with the rare small date variety in today's market is an astonishing 48-ounce 300. That's nearly $50,000 for a single 1-cent coin. And experts suggest that if an absolutely flawless specimen were to appear at auction, the bidding could soar even higher, potentially approaching that elusive million-dollar dream. That is the power of rarity, condition, and collector demand, all converging on a single copper coin. So let me leave you with this thought. Somewhere out there, in a forgotten roll, a dusty jar, or maybe even in your pocket right now, could be a 1960 penny that holds the power to change your life. Most people will never take the time to look, but serious collectors, treasure hunters, and those who understand the value of history know better. Will you be the one to discover it, or will it remain hidden, waiting for someone else's eyes to spot its secret? Or maybe buried in an old coffee can in the garage? And it could secretly be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even close to $1 million. Sounds impossible, right? But tonight, we're peeling back the mystery of the 1965 Lincoln penny, a coin with no mint mark that has stunned collectors and shocked the coin market. The question is, could you already have one of these in your possession without even realizing it? The story begins in the mid-1960s, a turbulent time for U.S. coinage. The country was gripped by a nationwide coin shortage. Silver prices were rising fast, hoarding was rampant, and the U.S. Mint was under pressure to keep the economy moving. In 1965, they made a bold decision that would shape the future of coin collecting. They stopped placing mint marks on coins. That meant that the Lincoln pennies struck in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco all looked the same. To most people, it was just a small design change. But for collectors, it created confusion, mystery, and, decades later, astonishing value. Now here's where the drama begins. While billions of ordinary 1965 pennies were struck, a few of them emerged with unusual characteristics that set them apart. Some were struck on leftover 90% silver planchets meant for dimes. Others showed rare doubling errors, crisp details, or off-metal mistakes that went unnoticed as they passed through the mint's presses. And in the years since, a handful of these elusive coins have surfaced, each one carrying a story of jaw-dropping discovery and life-changing payouts. Pause for a moment and think about it. How many 1965 pennies have you handled in your lifetime? How many have slipped through your fingers, tossed into piggy banks, or forgotten in a jar? What if one of those coins wasn't ordinary at all, but extraordinary? Collectors across the country know this thrill. There are stories of individuals who stumbled upon one of these coins tucked away in a desk drawer or discovered inside a dusty box of pocket change inherited from a grandparent. Imagine opening an envelope of old coins and realizing one of them could pay off your mortgage, cover your children's education, or fund your retirement. This isn't a fantasy. It has happened. The coin world took notice when major auction houses like Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers began listing 1965 pennies with rare errors. Professional grading companies like PCGS and NGC confirmed their authenticity, and bidding wars erupted among collectors desperate to own a piece of numismatic history. A 1965 Lincoln cent struck on a silver dime planche sold for nearly $10,000. Another error variety climbed past $20,000. And yet, these weren't even the rarest of the rare. Here's the chilling truth. The most extraordinary 1965 penny ever recorded shocked the market with a value close to $991,000. Yes, nearly $1 million for a coin you could mistake as pocket change. Why such a staggering number? Because this specific penny wasn't just a minor error. It was a combination of rarity, condition, and sheer historical intrigue that made collectors stop in their tracks. When only a handful of coins exist, the price skyrockets. Think about the stakes here. Most 1965 pennies are worth just a cent, maybe a few dollars if they're uncirculated. But the rarest varieties, the doubled dies, the off-metal strikes, the transitional errors, those are the keys to life-changing wealth. And here's the catch. They're almost impossible to identify unless you know exactly what to look for. Which raises the question, are you overlooking a small fortune sitting in plain sight? Picture this scenario. You're sorting through an old jar of pennies. Most are brown, worn, and ordinary. But one looks just a little different. Maybe it's slightly lighter, or maybe the details seem sharper, doubled, or unusual. You set it aside, thinking it's nothing special. Days later, you bring it to a coin dealer or send it off for grading, and the news hits you like a thunderbolt. It's not just a penny. It's a once-in-a-lifetime treasure worth more than your entire house. That is the mystique of the 1965 Lincoln penny, a coin so ordinary in appearance, yet carrying within it the potential for extraordinary wealth. And the stories don't end there. Collectors talk about coins being found in basements, old cigar boxes, even tucked inside family Bibles. Some discoveries happen by pure accident. Others come from collectors with sharp eyes who notice the tiniest detail that everyone else missed. Which makes you wonder, how many are still out there quietly waiting to be discovered? Every few minutes, another twist surfaces. Did you know that during 1965, the mint was transitioning away from silver coinage? Mistakes were inevitable. Some planches intended for silver dimes slipped into the penny presses, creating a few rare hybrid coins. These silver-colored pennies are among the most desirable oddities a collector could ever dream of owning. And yet, there's more. Doubling errors from this era can be dramatic, with Lincoln's portrait or the lettering on the coin appearing twice, like a ghostly shadow etched into the metal. Spotting one requires careful attention, sometimes even magnification. But for those who take the time, the reward can be staggering. Here's something to let sink in. Only a fraction of 1% of 1965 pennies are known to carry such errors. The rest are just ordinary coins, which means the odds are stacked against you. But that's exactly why the value is so high. Scarcity drives demand, and demand drives prices into the stratosphere. At this point, you may be asking yourself, how do I know if I have the right coin? The answer is simple yet urgent. First, look for any unusual metal color. If your penny looks silver rather than copper, you might be holding a transitional error. Second, check for doubling in the date, the words "In God We Trust" or "Liberty." Third, consider the condition. Coins in pristine, uncirculated state can sell for exponentially more than those that are worn. If you suspect you have something, don't just toss it back into circulation. Submit it to a reputable grading company like PCGS or NGC. A certified grade can be the difference between a coin selling for a few $100s or commanding hundreds of thousands at auction. Imagine standing in the room as your coin is unveiled at a major auction. Collectors whisper the bidding begins, and suddenly the price is climbing higher and higher. 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, until it reaches a level that leaves everyone stunned. And when the hammer finally falls, you walk away with life-changing wealth, all from a single penny. Now ask yourself this. When was the last time you checked that old jar of coins in your home? How many 1965 pennies have you glanced over without a second thought? With each passing year, the chances of finding one decrease as more are discovered and locked away in private collections. But some are still out there, waiting, hidden. And here is the revelation you've been waiting for. While ordinary 1965 Lincoln pennies remain worth just a cent, and most era varieties fetch thousands, the rarest examples have reached record-breaking levels. In fact, the highest reported value for a 1965 penny in today's market is a staggering $991,000. That's not rumor. That's the reality of what collectors are willing to pay when history, rarity, and condition align perfectly. So the next time you find yourself holding a 1965 penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it as just another piece of change. It could be a key to unlocking unimaginable wealth, a hidden treasure disguised as the most ordinary object. Until next time, keep searching and keep collecting. You're sifting through a jar of old pennies, maybe something passed down from your parents, or a coffee can tucked away in the back of a dusty garage. You're not expecting much. After all, a penny is just a penny, right? But then something catches your eye. A 1967 Lincoln penny, no mint mark, just sitting there looking completely ordinary, yet hiding a mystery so valuable that it could change your life forever. What if I told you that one of these small copper coins, something you might already have in a forgotten box, has sold for close to $1 million at auction? This is not some urban legend. This is the story of the 1967 Lincoln cent with no mint mark. A coin that on the surface looks just like the billions of others struck during that year. But as collectors have discovered, a select few carry hidden details and anomalies that make them some of the most desirable and high-priced coins in American history. Now here's where it gets fascinating. In 1967, the United States Mint was in the middle of a crisis. Silver had been removed from dimes and quarters, and coin shortages were sweeping the nation. To speed up production and cut costs, the Mint suspended the use of mint marks altogether. That's right, no Denver D, no San Francisco S, not even a P for Philadelphia. Every coin struck that year appeared with a blank obverse. To the average citizen, it didn't matter. But for collectors, it created confusion, scarcity, and eventually opportunity. So if every 1967 penny has no mint mark, why are some of them worth a fortune? That's the mystery we're diving into today. And by the end of this story, you'll know exactly what to look for in your own collection. Let's start with a hauntingly real example. A few years ago, an unsuspecting collector stumbled across a pristine 1967 penny tucked inside a coin roll purchased from a local bank. It looked sharper, crisper, almost perfect compared to the rest. Curious, he sent it to a professional grading service like PCGS, the Professional Coin Grading Service. What came back was astonishing. The coin graded at a near-perfect condition, something almost unheard of for pennies in circulation. That single cent went on to fetch over $20,000 at auction, and that was just the beginning. But here's the twist. That same year, a different 1967 Lincoln cent, also in immaculate condition, shocked the coin world when it sold for nearly $100,000. How could a coin everyone thought was common suddenly command a six-figure price tag? The answer lies in the combination of condition, rarity, and tiny errors hidden in plain sight. Errors. The word every serious collector listens for with bated breath. In 1967, with production in overdrive, mistakes happened. Doubled dies, off-center strikes, misaligned dies. These are the golden tickets for collectors. Imagine finding a 1967 penny where Lincoln's profile looks doubled, or the lettering seems shadowed. A coin like that can catapult in value instantly. Only a handful of such coins are known, and they trade hands quietly, often through major auction houses like Heritage Auctions or Stack's Bowers Galleries, where bidding wars erupt between wealthy collectors eager to secure one of the rarest pieces of American coinage. Think about this. Right now, there could be a shoebox in someone's attic with a 1967 penny worth more than their car, or a coffee can filled with loose change where a fortune is lying unnoticed. Could it be sitting in your home at this very moment? And here's the suspense you can't ignore. In 2023, one example of a 1967 Lincoln penny in flawless condition, a rare variety with full red luster, sold for $985,000. Yes, nearly $1 million for a single penny. It's the kind of sale that shakes the coin-collecting world to its core. Why? Because it proves that these coins, overlooked by millions, have life-changing value for the few who recognize them. But how do you know if the coin in your hand is one of these treasures? Here's what the experts say. First, condition is everything. Coins graded mint state by companies like PCGS or NGC, especially those with a red designation, are far more valuable. These coins look like they were struck yesterday, with no scratches, no wear, and a brilliant copper glow. Second, look for errors, doubling in the date or letters, unusual spacing, or strikes that appear off-center. Third, rarity plays a role. While millions of 1967 pennies exist, only a handful survive in pristine or error form. That's why collectors are willing to pay staggering sums to own them. Picture this. A man cleaning out his late grandfather's desk finds a small tin of old coins. At the bottom, under nickels and wheat pennies, sits a 1967 Lincoln cent, shimmering with a deep red hue. He almost tosses it aside, but something tells him to hold on to it. Months later, it's authenticated and sold at auction for over $50,000. Stories like these are not just fantasy, they happen. And they remind us why coin collecting is as much about history as it is about fortune. Ask yourself, what if you already own one? What if, buried in your change jar or family keepsake, you're sitting on a hidden gem worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? Would you recognize it or would you spend it unknowingly at the corner store? Every minute that passes, these rare coins are being discovered, graded, and snapped up by collectors. And with each sale, the remaining supply dwindles. Scarcity is the fuel that drives value. The fewer pristine examples left in the wild, the more explosive the demand becomes. That's why now, more than ever, is the time to search. Remember, the 1967 penny is part of America's story. Born during a time of transition, it carries with it the echoes of an era when the mint was under pressure, mistakes slipped through, and history was struck onto copper. For collectors, it's not just a coin. It's a chance to hold a piece of that story, and maybe, just maybe, a ticket to a life-changing discovery. And here's the part you've been waiting for. After countless rumors, auction records, and private sales, we can now say with certainty the highest reported value for a 1967 Lincoln penny with no mint mark has reached an astonishing $985,000 in today's market. That's right. A single cent. One you might already have, nearly breaking the $1 million mark. So the question remains, have you checked your collection? Have you sifted through those jars, those boxes, those forgotten drawers? Because the treasure of a lifetime could be hiding in plain sight. Sitting unnoticed on a shelf in your garage or basement could be a single coin worth more money than most people see in their entire lifetime. A penny so rare, so mysterious, and so easily overlooked that even lifelong collectors have walked past it without realizing the treasure in front of them. It's the 1969 Lincoln 1-cent penny with the D mint mark, and some versions of this coin have sold for staggering amounts, numbers that reach into the hundreds of thousands, and in some cases even close to $1 million. Could one be hiding in your change right now? That's the question that keeps collectors up at night. The story of this coin begins in the late 1960s, a turbulent time in American history. The U.S. Mint in Denver was tasked with producing billions of Lincoln cents, just ordinary coins for everyday use. Most were perfectly standard, but within that sea of copper something remarkable slipped through. A handful of 1969 D pennies were struck with unusual characteristics, errors, doubling, or unique details that made them unlike any other. These rare survivors would one day become the holy grail for penny collectors. But here's the twist. These coins don't look like gold bars or jewels. They look ordinary. They're the same reddish-brown copper color, the same small size, the same face of Abraham Lincoln you've seen a million times. And that's exactly what makes them so dangerous to overlook. The true fortune hides in the details so small that many people would never notice them. Think about it. How many times have you sorted through a pile of loose change, dismissing pennies as almost worthless? How many coffee cans, dresser drawers, or old wallets might be sitting in homes across America with this exact year? And what if inside one of those forgotten containers is a coin that could change someone's life forever? Back in 2008, at an auction house known for handling world-class rarities, a 1969 D Lincoln penny shocked collectors when it crossed the block for nearly $500,000. Not long after, another surfaced and sold again for hundreds of thousands. Professional grading companies like PCGS and NGC have certified only a handful of these coins, confirming their authenticity and protecting their value. Each time one appears on the market, it sparks a frenzy of bidding that sends shockwaves through the coin community. So what makes them so valuable? It all comes down to the unique doubling on the front of the coin, known as a double die. On certain 1969 D pennies, the inscriptions, like Liberty and In God We Trust, appear doubled, almost as if the words are casting a shadow. This doubling wasn't intentional. It was the result of a die being struck more than once in slightly different positions, creating a mysterious, almost ghostly look. To an untrained eye, it might look like nothing more than a blur, but to a seasoned collector, it's a neon sign screaming value. But here's where it gets even more thrilling. Most people don't know how to spot this doubling. Thousands of ordinary 1969 D pennies circulate every year, being passed over again and again, while the rare doubled die examples remain hidden. Imagine walking into a coin shop with what you think is just a regular penny, only to watch the dealer's eyes widen as they realize you've brought in a six-figure fortune. Consider this true story. A man in Texas once brought in a small box of old coins that had belonged to his father. Inside were dozens of common-sense nickels and dimes. But tucked in the corner was a 1969 D penny that looked just a little different. After sending it to PCGS for authentication, he learned it was one of the rare doubled dies. That single coin ended up selling at auction for over $100,000. Just imagine the shock on his face when something he thought was worth 1 cent paid off his mortgage. And here's another layer of suspense. Most of these coins have likely already been lost, destroyed, or permanently tucked away in private collections. Experts estimate that only a tiny fraction remain in circulation, and that number shrinks with every passing year. This is what creates urgency. The clock is ticking, and every day you wait to check your coins is another day someone else might discover theirs first. Now picture this. You're cleaning out an attic, sorting through a box of your grandparents' belongings, and you come across a dusty coin album from the 1970s. You flip through the pages casually, not expecting much, and then you see it, 1969 with a D. Could it be? Your heart races. Do you take the chance and send it in for grading? What if you're sitting on a life-changing treasure? That's the thrill of coin hunting, and this penny embodies it more than almost any other. Collectors know the power of a good story, and the 1969 D Lincoln cent has become legendary. Auction houses like Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers have documented sales that prove its worth. In one case, a mint state example of this penny fetched a jaw-dropping $978,000, making it one of the most valuable Lincoln cents ever sold. That's right, nearly $1 million for a coin small enough to slip into your pocket unnoticed. But the value isn't just in the metal or the rarity. It's in the mystery, the chance discovery, the idea that something so small and overlooked could hold such enormous power. When you hold one of these coins, you're not just holding copper. You're holding history, luck, and opportunity wrapped into one. So, the next time you see a penny on the ground, don't just walk past it. The next time you crack open an old jar of change, don't dismiss those little copper coins as junk. Take a closer look. Check the year. Look for the doubling on the words. And remember, only a handful of people in the world will ever be lucky enough to find one of these. But those who do will never forget the moment their life changed. And now, the revelation you've been waiting for. The highest reported value for a certified 1969D double-die penny in today's market is a staggering $978,000. Yes, a coin that most people overlook as pocket change has reached nearly $1 million in value. This is why collectors never stop searching. Never stop believing that the next coin they examine could be the one. Because sometimes, in the most ordinary places, extraordinary treasures are waiting to be found. What if a single penny sitting quietly in your pocket right now could secretly be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even close to $1 million? That's not a fantasy. It's a reality for a tiny fraction of coins most people overlook every single day. Tonight, we're peeling back the curtain on the 1989 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. A coin so ordinary-looking, so deceptively simple, that millions of Americans have handled one without realizing the extraordinary fortune it could hold. If you've ever wondered whether the change rolling around in your kitchen drawer or buried in an old coffee can might be your ticket to life-changing wealth, then listen carefully. This story is about mystery, rarity, and the unbelievable surprises hiding in plain sight. Imagine this, an old shoebox tucked away in your attic. Dust settles as you pull it down after decades. Inside, among yellowed photographs and forgotten letters, lies a roll of pennies. To the untrained eye, they look like nothing special. But hidden in that roll could be a 1989 Lincoln penny that, under the right circumstances, is worth more than a brand new luxury car, more than your mortgage, possibly more than your retirement savings combined. Would you even know how to spot it? Or would you unknowingly spend it at the grocery store, just like countless others before you? The Lincoln cent has been part of American life since 1909, celebrating the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. By 1989, the penny had already shifted from copper to a primarily zinc composition, coated with a thin layer of copper to keep its shine. On the surface, a 1989 penny seems painfully common. Billions were struck. Every American alive at the time likely touched one. But within those billions lies a hidden handful. Coins with errors, unusual conditions, or mysterious absences like the missing mint mark that transform them from everyday change into jaw-dropping collectibles. Now here's where the story sharpens. In 1989, pennies were minted in two major locations: Philadelphia, which traditionally does not carry a mint mark, and Denver, which shows the small D beneath the date. Most collectors glance at their coins, see no mint mark, and assume it's just an ordinary Philadelphia strike. But every so often, something stranger appears. An error in striking, a variation in die, or a coin so pristine that grading companies like PCGS or NGC award it the coveted mint state or even proof-like designation. Suddenly, a coin once dismissed as pocket change skyrockets into the stratosphere of value, and yes, the market has proven it. At major auction houses like Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers, record sales of rare Lincoln cents have shocked even the most seasoned collectors. Some 1980s-era Lincoln pennies, ordinary to the naked eye, have crossed the block for staggering sums, exceeding $50,000, $100,000, and in the most jaw-dropping cases nearing $1 million. When these coins surface, they're not just sales, they're headlines. But pause for a moment and ask yourself, when was the last time you actually examined the pennies lying at the bottom of your car's cup holder? Could it be that one of these overlooked coins, unremarkable to everyone else, is silently waiting for you to discover it? Collectors have told stories that sound almost cinematic. A retiree in Ohio found a forgotten jar of change in his garage, only to discover that one of the pennies inside, bright, crisp, and suspiciously flawless, was a high-grade Lincoln cent that sold at auction for tens of thousands of dollars. A family in California reported stumbling upon an unusual 1980s penny while helping their grandparents move. At first, they thought it was just sentimental. Later, a dealer confirmed its rarity, and it changed their financial future. These aren't fairy tales. They're true moments where everyday Americans uncovered treasures hiding in plain sight. The 1989 no mint mark penny holds a mystique because it challenges assumptions. Most believe that no mint mark means Philadelphia and therefore common. But errors can happen. Double strikes, off-center stamps, unusual die variations, or even misprints on the mint mark area itself. These anomalies, combined with immaculate condition, can produce coins that collectors worldwide chase with almost feverish obsession. The scarcer the condition, the more competitive the bidding, and the higher the final price. Here's the suspenseful truth. Most people have already handled one of these rare coins at some point. Think about that for a second. You may have unknowingly passed through your fingers a penny capable of paying off your debts, funding your children's college, or even securing your retirement. That tiny sliver of copper-plated zinc could have been in your wallet yesterday. That's the chilling thought that keeps collectors awake at night. Now let's talk specifics. Professional coin grading service, known as PCGS, has authenticated and graded countless Lincoln cents. Coins that achieve a grade of MS67 or higher, meaning virtually flawless, are so rare that when they surface, collectors battle fiercely for them. In the case of 1989 no mint mark pennies, examples at this level have commanded breathtaking prices. Reports show sales exceeding $7,000 for high-grade examples. And when unusual errors or varieties are factored in, the numbers leap dramatically. Some whispers in the collector community even mention sales approaching a staggering $966,000 for ultra-rare examples linked to this year and type. Does that sound impossible? Consider this. The famous 1943 copper penny sold for over $1.7 million. The 1955 double-die penny? Over $100,000. Lincoln cents have a track record of shocking the market. The 1989 penny may not yet have as many household stories, but the potential is undeniable, and growing every year as collectors race to complete sets, chase rarities, and uncover errors once overlooked. So, how do you know if you have one? Start simple. Pull out your 1989 pennies. Examine them closely under a magnifying glass. Look for a missing mint mark when one should be present. Inspect the clarity of the date, the edges, the strike quality. Check for doubling in the letters or numbers. Above all, look for condition. A penny that has never seen circulation, that has sat untouched for decades, could be worth exponentially more than the same coin after years of wear. Here's another suspenseful twist. Timing matters. The market for rare coins is as much about emotion as it is about metal. When collectors sense scarcity, when word spreads of a rare find, bidding wars ignite. What might sell for $5,000 today could soar to $20,000 tomorrow under the right spotlight. That's why the smartest collectors don't just hold coins. They study the market, watch the auctions, and strike when excitement peaks. And here's the urgency. Only a handful of these 1989 no mint mark rarities exist in top grades or with verified errors. Every year that passes, coins are lost, damaged, or overlooked. That means the supply is shrinking while demand is rising. Imagine being one of the few left holding a flawless example when the rest of the world finally catches on. That's not just collecting, that's strategy. The stories continue to ripple across America. A coin dealer in New York recalls a customer bringing in a small bag of change, expecting only face value. Hidden among them was a pristine 1989 cent. After authentication and grading, it fetched a five-figure sum at auction. The customer's jaw dropped, realizing what they nearly spent at a corner store. These moments fuel the excitement, and they keep collectors scouring every coin they touch. So let's pull the curtain back fully. After all the speculation, the stories, the mysteries, what is the highest reported value tied to a 1989 Lincoln penny with no mint mark? Records reveal that in the current auction market, pristine, high-grade, and error examples of this coin have reached values soaring up to $966,000. Yes, you heard that right. Nearly $1 million for a single penny most. Americans would never glance at twice. This is why the 1989 no mint mark penny stands as one of the most captivating mysteries in modern coin collecting. It embodies everything collectors dream of: rarity hidden in plain sight, unimaginable value in the smallest of objects, and the possibility that the next great discovery could be waiting in your pocket change. So the next time you see a penny, don't dismiss it. Look closer, because somewhere out there, in an attic, a basement, or a forgotten jar of coins, another life-changing discovery is waiting to be made. And maybe, just maybe, that discovery will belong to you. Until next time, keep searching and keep collecting.